All right, Java and Goodwater coming to you post Oregon Coast Trail. I wanted to give you a wrap up, give you a little summary of the trail, and some highlights of just our thoughts on how it went and what it was all about. So the trail in general, 413 miles. At least I think that's according to Far Out. And it takes about a month to do or so. I'm sure you could do a little faster, but I think the average time is about a month. Yeah, about 4 weeks or so. So we took 27 days of hiking to do it, and then we had 3 zeros. So it took us a month to do it. So pretty much the standard, I think. So what do we got next? What are we going to talk about? The weather. So how was the weather? I mean,
well, it was ideal in my opinion.
Yeah.
We didn't get caught in any rain or anything like that. So
nothing significant.
For Oregon, not knowing what Oregon was going to be like at all.
Right.
So.
I think we heard that kind of the ideal time to do it was in the October, September time. I'm not October, August. Sorry, August time
September.
Frame, right? Because that's the drier time season. So that's exactly when we were there. We did during the month of August, and I thought that was like you said. I think that was perfect. We didn't really hit much rain at all.
No.
So nothing significant at least.
Foggy mornings, misty days, but as far as downpours, no.
Right, and not being from that coast, again, we just hearsay. That's what we heard was kind of normal for that time. Is right. It's foggy in the morning, kind of then burns off around noon or in the afternoon. That's pretty much what we had almost every day, I think. Right. So, so that was it was good. It was a good experience as far as the weather was concerned. Let's see. We do have some notes here that we're going from. So. Let's see. What do you got? What's next?
Well, we went southbound, which is the recommended. Typically when you do a through hike, it's Nobo, northbound. But this one we were southbound, heading towards California, more so just because of the wind. That rather than walking into the wind day after day after day, you're at least not fighting.
It was at our backs when we had it. Majority of the time, yes. I think we of course had some days where it was the opposite, but most of the time it was not in our face, which was really nice. Let's see. Okay, trail awareness. Yeah, why don't you start with that one?
So it seems that most people know about the Appalachian Trail, the AT, the Pacific Crest Trail, the PCT. Even if you're hiking on those trails and you're not a hiker, you still know that you are living within a certain radius of that particular trail. That is not the case with the Oregon Coast Trail.
It's a relatively new trail.
Yes, it is an incomplete trail as well.
Right. Yeah. So it's being relatively new. Yeah, a lot of even the locals don't even know about it yet. They don't realize that that there is this trail, and I think what a lot of them, or at least a few of them that we talked to, thought that the trail was the Oregon Coast Highway, Route 101, which in a lot of the cases it is. They are the same for probably
that
half.
is a bike packer. Bikes will do a long-term distancing through on that, the 101. Yes. Right.
And so we were on the highway a good bit. I don't know if it was half the time, but it seemed like a decent amount. And so again, that goes to the incompleteness of the trail at this point. So they're still working on that and hoping to get it away from the road as much as possible. But at any rate, so they are the same in some cases, but yeah, and a lot of times they are not, and it is the Oregon Coast Trail. So you're actually walking on the beach. At least that's the trails around the beach. So that's the goal.
So when we're walking down the beach with our full packs on, you have some people who are looking at us in a very confused manner. Some of them did approach and high-five us and knew what the OCT was, and that they have done sections of it. They want to do the entire thing, so they were really interested, and we would stop and chat
what we
with
were
them.
doing, right?
There were other people who were like, "What are you guys doing?
Yeah, why are you walking on the beach with this huge backpack on?"
Yeah. So
Yeah,
and then we would educate them as to what we're doing.
Right.
And yes.
And then, so when we were on the highway, then the same thing goes for for hitching. Now, we are not very good at hitchhiking anyway. You probably know that about us at this point. However, again, to that same point, it's a difficult place to hitch because people don't know what you're doing. They aren't aware of the trail. PCT and AT in particular, the ones that we've been on, people are very aware of the trail. They know what you're doing. They see you with this big backpack. They're like, hey, that hiker needs a ride. But it was much more difficult in Oregon just because they weren't aware of what we were doing. We did have some nice people that knew what we were doing and gave us rides. Some people took a chance on us, I guess because we looked safe. And I think we had some pleasant experiences when they did take a chance on us. So I thought that was actually nice.
Yes.
So we met some great people,
Yes.
On those hitches. So I hopefully the awareness grows here over the coming years as more people, I'm sure, will do that trail.
And saying that then as well, the Trail Angel community is not as established on the OCT as it is on those other trails that are heavily used.
Right.
There is a page, an Oregon Trail Coast Facebook page, a couple of different ones that we were members of at that point in time, but not a lot of engagement in regards to shuttling
Right. Yeah,
or that
just
type of thing.
availability
which is
for
fine,
it. Yeah.
but it's just different.
But at the same
If you're
time,
expecting that type of thing.
you don't necessarily need it much as far as shuttling around. There were a few places where we certainly had some help, and we were grateful for it. Again, just hitching, but you are close to, I'll say, relatively close to civilization.
Yes.
Enough, and it's easy to get to walking, that you don't need the shuttling service as much on that trail. So because you will get the trail regularly, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So Trail Magic, same response, I guess. Really, we didn't have any.
No, which is fine.
Outside of somebody offering us a ride,
Yes.
that kind of thing. But if you're thinking, like PCT or AT kind of Trail Magic, it's not there. At least not yet. Again, maybe that'll grow.
Perhaps.
Maybe people will do something like that. We met some great people that I feel like somebody met us on the beach or something like that, and they offered us something just because they were there with their family or something.
Yes.
Whatever
that was at
they were
the
out.
dunes.
Right.
Yes.
And we had we were hiking one section one day and sat down for a while, and with an older couple, and just admiring the views. And they said, "Hey, what are you doing when you get down to the bottom of the hill?" And we said, "Well, we're going to try to get a ride into town," and they offered a ride. So so it all worked out. But at the same time, there was a Trail Angel there that day that ended up giving us a ride. So it's around. It's just
It's more happenstance.
not prevalent yet.
Coincidental.
Yeah. All right, what do we got next? So shuttles, ferries, buses. Again, as far as the road and getting in and out of town, the shuttles aren't necessarily a thing, because shuttle services, because you don't really need them all that much. However, we did utilize. We should break it down, I guess. Let's talk about ferries. So we used boats a few times. The trail, a couple of times, we'll follow the road for a number of miles. I think one day was like 17 miles.
Into Tillamook,
around the bay there, probably
which we
Tillamook
did
Bay.
not do.
Right. So instead, there's an alternate path that you can take by taking a boat ride across the water. So you can skip all those miles, which is what we did. I'm sure we will someday go back to Tillamook, because I'm sure it's a great town, but we didn't see the need to walk 17, 18 miles on road.
We probably wouldn't have. We would have taken
Right.
the bus.
We would have somehow figured out another way.
Yeah.
But instead, we walked beach for a while that day, and some beach that we wouldn't have normally, people wouldn't normally walk when they're doing this trail. So right, we went across a spit, a peninsula, and the boat took us across the water. So that was great, and we did that a couple of times. And there was once I remember that where we had to take a boat. I mean, we would have been, who knows, we would have been swimming. It would have been way too deep. There was no walking across the water, so the trail actually crosses the river. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there's a there's a boat. There's a facility right across the road or across the river. You can see them from where you're standing on the edge of the river, and you kind of just yell over. We called, but nobody answered
because we didn't see anybody on the dock at that point in time. Yeah.
So we physically called on the phone, and then we just kind of stood there, and eventually somebody, I guess, saw us there.
Long.
And,
we might have been there like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
But he was lovely.
Yeah. And yeah, we had some great boat rides. We had one
out there for a little bit.
Fastest boat ride I have ever been on.
We were beating weather.
Yeah, there was a storm rolling in, and so anyway, the moral of the story is there's some boat rides, some ferries.
It makes the trail interesting.
It does.
Because you just never know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
The next day kind of situation. And
yeah,
it's fun actually.
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
it was definitely a different experience.
It's kind of the ferry ride across up in Maine.
Right. Yes.
On the AT.
On the AT. Yeah. The canoe ride. Yes.
The canoe ride across. That's the trail.
Right. But at the same time, then we talked about buses, or we talked about road walking, and avoiding road walking by taking some buses.
Yeah.
Again,
fortunately, there's a pretty robust bus system along the coast around those major towns, so that was easy enough to kind of navigate if we needed to.
All the information is online. Very easy to do. We did it when we felt that it was necessary, and when we felt like the road walk was not necessary.
Too dangerous.
It was too dangerous.
More than anything else.
Right.
Because there's no shoulder, and people.
Right.
Oregon drivers do not get over. They ride that white line. They hug it.
I mean, I hate to say it, but we actually had somebody come toward us one time. So that was a little dangerous, but intentionally come toward us. But those road walks, a lot of times when we did skip them, it was because we knew there was nothing to see. It was road walking just for the sake of road walking, and that wasn't something that we felt was necessary, so we took a bus. And again, it's part of the experience. We had some lovely bus drivers too.
Yes, we did.
So,
and we saw other thru hikers on that bus as well.
Yes. Yeah.
We were not the only ones.
We were not the only ones. Yeah. So so that's kind of transportation, I guess, around the trail and getting around the trail. So, all right. Beach walking. We covered that a little bit already. So beach walking. How do you feel about beach walking?
We prefer to beach walk when the sand is firm. So when tide is going out, I suppose.
Right.
And we have that wet sand. I mean, we had days where we were beach walking for 17 miles.
The entire day.
And it was lovely in the beginning when the sand was firm and we could kind of trek along.
Right.
But then eventually that tide comes back in and it chases you up, and then you're on a slope.
Right.
And you're hiking, diagonally.
Right.
On a shifting, and it's dry sand, so it's very soft and difficult to hike in.
Right.
So.
And there are sections where vehicles are allowed on the beach, and that doesn't necessarily pack the sand down. Makes it harder to walk on a lot of times. So, but in general, beach walking is, it's romantic, I guess, if you will, in your head for a little while. And you're like, oh, I love walking on the beach. But after a while, after 17 miles in a day, it becomes tiresome.
Well, yes. There was some coastline too where it was all beach and all ocean.
Right.
It wasn't.
There was nothing to see.
There wasn't the rock sculptures. There weren't.
Right.
Things to look at. Well, that slows us down too when we're looking for rocks and pebbles and agates and things like that. So
I mean, it's gorgeous. Walking along the beach, it is gorgeous, and I appreciated it and loved doing it. But after a while, it's not the romantic thing that you might think it is. So
it's nice to see some trees ahead of you and know that you're climbing up onto a cliffside or something like that, just to kind of have some variation in your day.
Right. And kind of to keep in mind, if somebody is thinking about doing it too, walking on the beach that much, you're often walking. If you're always going southbound, you're always downhill to your right side. So after a while, that can wear on your ankles, your hips, So that's just something to keep in mind. You know, it's nice to be able to mix it up. It's one nice thing about a trail is that you're going up, you're going down, your angles are different, so you're working different muscles and tendons and all those things, so you're kind of stretching out a little bit more. So
Water.
All right.
Well, and because we're on the beach so much,
Yes,
you can't drink salt water.
there's plenty of water, you just can't drink it.
It's not drinkable.
Yeah.
Well, and the small creeks and things, the runoff that we would see then going into the ocean is also unsafe to drink, just
Right.
because of its runoff. By that point in time, it's gone through fields and
Off the roads,
neighborhoods,
and
so
Yeah.
it's not safe to drink.
we did address that in some of our other videos as well, and so you're at the end of the source there. Anything that's running off is in the water that is at that point. You're at the end of the line. So they do recommend that you don't drink it much. So I think we only filtered water one time, and that was right near the end, Sand Creek, one of our last couple of days.
Because there was a stretch of like 25-30 miles
Yeah.
where there was
No.
nothing, no potable water that we could
Right.
refill.
Right. So almost all of our water, all of our water came from potable sources then. A lot of it came from restrooms, public restrooms. So there
Campsites from the night
Campsites.
before.
Yep, campgrounds and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's where almost all of it came from, and it was fine. We're still here. So we did not filter that water. We didn't treat it either. We didn't
do anything
so
to it.
yeah, we just drank it as is. So it was fine. Like I said, we only filtered that one time, and I'm glad that we had the filter at that point, just because of that. Because that would have been impossible to carry.
But that's
the
one
water
of the
that far.
logistics that is different than the other trails
Right.
as well. Rather than looking for streams and creeks, you're like, okay, where's the next public water source?
Right. Yeah.
that we can refill our water bottles.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Otherwise, I mean, it's that one stretch was the only time we had trouble getting water from anywhere. So, all right. Camping is a little different on this trail. So you pass through, well, we'll talk about towns in a minute, but you're going through towns often. But otherwise, if you're staying there, if you're not staying there, then a lot of times you're staying in a state park, a county park. I think we only slept on trail maybe 3-4 nights, something like that. Once, kind of in the woods at the top of the hill. Maybe twice, 2-3 times, I'll say on the beach or dunes, really in the dunes. And that was it.
We could have slept on the beach more frequently. However, it's very confusing as to where you can publicly camp and not.
Right.
Because there's town boundary lines and private property boundary lines.
State
While the
park,
beach itself is public, to camp there can sometimes be a little ambiguous and confusing.
Yeah, they give you the rules, but they don't necessarily tell you where the boundaries are for those rules. So that was a little difficult, and therefore we avoided it a lot of times. Actually, I guess all the time, other than when we were back in the dunes.
Well, plus we didn't know what the tides were going to be like coming in either. How high is it going to be? But since we weren't familiar with the beaches themselves, we weren't sure exactly
where the water was going to end up overnight.
Yeah, we didn't want to get swamped out at 3 a.m. in the morning. So.
And also, being that close to the water, when you wake up, you're just going to be drenched. There's just the moisture in the air. Yeah. So we decided that we didn't really want to deal with that too much whenever possible. So a lot of the times we stayed in towns, hotels, motels, things like that, which were all great as well. And I think we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, camping on trail, you really have to plan it out. And you don't need to plan out ahead of, like a month in advance.
No.
I think we read early on that maybe you should be, if you're in there during the busy, touristy season, but I mean, I felt like August was probably that time, and we had no trouble.
Well, the same strategy that we use on other trails, we used for the OCT, and that was, okay, we're planning this section, this is how many miles we're doing, this is where we're camping.
Right.
And then we would kind of go.
Right.
So. We just did it section by section.
Yeah, and
4 or 5 days at a time.
it worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had no
didn't have any
issues.
issues getting reservations for hotels.
Right.
Getting campsite spaces. No, nothing.
Yeah.
So, yep.
The Oregon State Park system, though,
Mm-hmm.
is great. Their sites are really nice because of the Oregon Coast Highway and the bikers that also use that section. They have specific sites set up. They call them hiker-biker sites that you can come in and use relatively cheap. I mean, I want to say it was like $7-8 a person.
Each person, yes.
Yeah, something like that for a night.
But you don't have to reserve them.
Right.
You're just kind of going in and saying, here I am.
Yeah, plopping yourself down
Yep.
in that space. You got full use of the bathrooms and the showers and the water. Sometimes there was laundry facilities. And then the same situation applied for we were at a county park, at one instance at least. And that was kind of the same thing. I mean, they had space for us. We were just in a regular space. Well, kind of. We weren't not in the RV space. We were in the tent spaces. But they had laundry and they had great showers and so yeah. And I don't think most of them were not coin operated. I think the state parks were all just open. The showers were just free to use.
Yeah.
We did have some coin op, I think, on the in the county areas, but other than that, it was great. So it was really nice to be able to get a shower on a regular basis, as opposed to some other trails, where you're going days without. That was just nice to rinse off and get that salt air off of you as well. So that was good. So, all right. The beach. I mean, camping on the beach. Any comments about that specifically?
I got it out of our system.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the
Something
dunes.
to try.
The dunes was just because we needed to camp there. But that last night that we camped out over the beach,
right?
That was
great.
Ideal.
That was a great night.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, from our perspective at least, it's something to try, but not necessarily something that we are, like, hey, let's do that again and again and again. So, all right. Okay, so we talked a little bit about towns already. They're prevalent, which is nice. Not to say that they're huge towns.
They're too prevalent.
Yeah, that's probably true.
For a through hike, they're too prevalent. You're like, no, I want to can I just be out in the wilderness for 5 days?
Yeah, that's true.
Why are we at another town?
Yeah.
We were just here for breakfast. Why can't we? We could eat lunch in town too.
And sometimes we did that. We ate breakfast and then we had lunch and then we had dinner and yeah. But I mean, they were all great.
Yes.
Not large towns by any means.
I do love going into the little towns and kind of getting the vibe of the town and things like that. So that was lovely and that was wonderful. But
yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really neat to see those small towns
different.
and tour around a little bit. So
coming off the PCT though, and you're like,
yeah, when you have no service at all and you don't see people or any civilization for a week at a time, and then you're every day
with it
2 days. Yeah. But the towns were great. Resupply was decent most of the time.
Stores.
There were a few spots I think that where the stores were there. I don't think we ever resupplied at like a gas station kind of situation. There was always something large enough that it had what we needed or wanted. So it was good, and packing out some town food here and there too, of course. So that worked out well. I don't think you need to worry. If anybody's going to be doing it, there's no concern with resupply.
No.
Unless I don't even know unless I was going to say unless you had a special diet, but that doesn't even really apply either. So okay. Again, most of them are very close to trail. You're not concerned with walking or hitching or too much.
Well, they're beach towns.
Miles, right?
I mean, they're towns, the small towns that are right along the coast.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yeah. So that was they're all close. They're all walkable, and sometimes the trail's going right next to or right through the town anyway. Yeah. So very easy to get to. I mean, amenities again. We never had any trouble finding a place to eat, finding a place to resupply, finding a place to to sleep for the night. Everything was great. So, and you can see from our other videos, kind of where we stayed and some of the choices. We had some. I think we made some great choices. That La Cris I'll shout out to them, that little Lacris hotel that we stayed in near the end. I can't remember, it was right after our really fast boat ride.
Yes.
You know, and it was pouring down rain, and we sat outside, and it's a very nice little family-run motel, but it was very clean, very great people, and very helpful, and the grocery store and everything's right across the street. So yeah, so that one just popped into my head. It was a nice little place. So we didn't really spend a lot of time with video on that one. But
it was pouring.
it was pouring down, raining. We were soaked. So, but great place. So, all right. What do we got next? So, gear. Go ahead.
We had with us off the PCT.
Yeah. So yeah, we will do a gear video here, hopefully very soon. But yeah, we basically took everything that we already had with us on the PCT, because of course we were on the opposite coast. So we weren't going to go home and repack or anything like that. Plus, it was a really quick turnaround within 2-3 days. So we were off one trail and on to the next. That being said, you could easily pare your pack down. Your kit could be, I don't want to say half the size, but again, we only filtered water once. If you plan on trying to do it and stay in towns and not do the camping out, you could do it. You may have, if your pack is light enough and you're going quickly, you would have some long days, a couple of long days to get to the next town. But otherwise, you could do it
without a shelter.
Without taking a shelter. Now, I'm not saying I recommend going out and backpacking without some kind of a shelter with you, but that is doable on this trail if you really.
You don't have to carry as much food.
Yeah.
Hang your food, any of that other stuff.
Right.
So,
yeah. So we usually use either a bear can or an Ursack for our food storage. I feel like there was only one time when that was kind of necessary. That one time we actually camped in
the woods.
And again, I doubt that there was much around that would have bothered our food.
Right. Yeah.
However, little critters are the main concern there. So, but yeah, you could easily get away with a much lighter pack. I'm glad that we did have our heavier sleeping bags. We were carrying our essentially winter bags. I mean, we 10-degree quilts, which is overkill at 10 degrees. However, we had some chilly nights, even in August, and I never found that I was too drenched in sweat or anything like that.
Well, that's the beauty of a quilt too, is that
Right.
You can open it up and it's very versatile in that regard.
But the coastline there was, it was regularly in the 50s and 60s, even during the day.
Mm-hmm.
We had some warmer days, obviously, but then at night it's cooling off,
Mm-hmm.
and there's usually air
Dampness.
movement and
It's
dampness.
damp.
Yeah. So so having even a heavier quilt was not an issue at all, other than the extra weight in the pack. So. I think that is right. That's the end of our list here, other than just kind of overall impressions of the trail from our perspective. So, do you want to start? Tell us what.
Well, I mean, as
generally.
far as coastline is concerned, it's vastly different than it's polar opposite from the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what the coastline itself looks like, what beach towns are like. Beach towns along the East Coast are built up, very consumer, very material, very populated. There it's very small town, small community, and the coastline is just amazing. And you don't see a lot of people in the water necessarily
because it's cold. However,
and there's dangers with riptides and sneaker waves and different things like that. However, it's surreal as far as just the beauty of the rock formations and the caves that are formed. And I mean, we had some low tides, fortunately early low tides, that we got out there and we were in the tide pools and looking at these beautiful, colorful starfish, and so that was amazing and kind of surreal and otherworldly at times. So, I'm glad that we went over there and did that. Not that I wanted to necessarily stop hiking the PCT. However, it lent itself to a perfect opportunity to go over to the OCT and do that. So
I'm really glad we did
awesome.
it. Yeah, like you said, it was gorgeous. I mean, that coastline was just, nothing that I had anticipated. Yeah, and I loved it.
Hiking through the capes, up through the trails on
yeah,
the capes,
yeah.
and the overlooks, and
Right.
yeah, it was.
Yes, and yeah, all the rock formations, the water, you know, the spouting horns, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and those types of things that come from that environment were just awesome. Yeah, I would definitely, I would love to go back and do, you know, day hikes all through that entire coast again. You know, I'm not sure that I would do a through hike again of that trail or be overly excited about doing it. You know, like, oh, I really want to get back and do a through hike of the OCT again. But I would love to go back and see lots of sections of it. It was beautiful.
Well, we could drive and then just kind of do
Yeah.
the sections where road
Right.
walking is not.
Yeah, definitely though, take your time and enjoy, like you said, enjoy the tide pools and the rock formations, and you know, I mean, we did, you know, as
There
much
were
as we
days
could.
where, there were some miles where we were like going 3.5, 4 miles an hour on the
Yeah.
road in a flat beach, but then there were other times where like 1 mile per hour
Right.
because we were looking
We were
at
just
shells
really-
and taking pictures and
Yeah.
just kind of,
Yeah,
So it was lovely.
it was great.
We didn't have to worry about necessarily making miles, so
Right.
that was nice.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, all in all, you know, it was a great experience. I'm glad we did it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back and visiting again,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing a few things that we didn't get to see, you know, off the trail, going to the town of Tillamook and going down to the southern end to see some of the redwoods and things like that. Some of the stuff that we just didn't have the time to do at that point in time. So, but yeah, we will definitely go back, and of course we'll be going through Oregon when we try to wrap up the PCT again next year. So so maybe we will, I don't know, who
Meet
knows,
again.
spend a day to go over there and hit the beach or something for
Yep.
a day or two, take a break. So all right, I think that's it. I think that's a wrap for the Oregon Coast Trail 2024. We do have some other adventures coming up that you'll see in the coming months here. Hopefully you're enjoying our videos. Hopefully you're learning something, as we learn as well. But please reach out to us. You know, comments, ask us questions. We'd love to add some content just to answer questions sometimes. You know, we do have a couple of ideas already of some things that people have asked, so we will have some little short videos of those, gear and food and, you know, those types of things. But otherwise, yeah, if there's anything that would be helpful to someone else as they're hiking these trails, just let us know. All right, that's it. And we will see you again soon on another adventure, another journey. All right, have a good day.
See ya.